Yo, what's going on, dudes? HK Titan here with a brand new video for you guys, and in today's video, I have something a little bit different planned for you guys because I have a really cool idea for a map, but I just don't know how I want to go about it yet. So one of my favorite things in Bloons TD6 is to go to super late game, but in Bloons TD6, as far as like the late game maps are concerned, at least in Bloons, there are only a couple of really good maps to go late game. The first one, of course, is going to be Cubism, because Cubism is a really long map. The only problem with Cubism is that the pathway's long, but there's not a lot of room to like place down banana farms, or at least like place them to where they're not in the way of your towers. And then, of course, the second map to go super late game on is going to be the map logs. But again, we're going to have the issue with the pathway getting in the way of placing your towers. On top of that, there's only one water spot on this map, so you're not really able to like place down the Nave Arc of the Seas and get like the Nave Arc of the Seas to a super high paragon degree. So that's what I want to do today. I want to go through and I want to create the longest map in Bloons TD6 that isn't cluttered, but also has a lot of detail, and the detail is where I'm having a little bit of issues. So let me take a look at some of the other longest maps in Bloons TD6 to see if we can get a little bit of inspiration. So right here, this is like the biggest problem that I have with like the longest map stuff, is that when you use like a pathway like this, it's going to end up becoming like really wide, because trying to make a longest path, obviously you're gonna have to layer the track on top of itself. So this is when you have a little bit of issue with like the pathway becoming a little bit wider than you would like it to be, so it ends up not looking as good. And also another thing with like creating the longest path is like having enough room to like place down towers. So when I make my longest track, I don't want it to be like a straight line or anything like this, because I mean the straight lines are cool, but I think I want to go a little bit more in detail. I was thinking like if I made my pathway like a garden, I think if I made this map a garden, it would end up looking pretty good. Like, I really like this track here. The only problem with this track is that there's so much detail. It's hard to place down a bunch of banana farms in order to like grind out a bunch of money in order to buy all the towers that you want for late game. On top of that, because the track is so long and so spaced out, it's gonna make like placing down a tower that can hit the entire track a little bit harder. Now, this is a really solid style of map for a longest map, but again, the only problem is that there isn't a lot of detail. And that's the problem that you're going to have with a lot of these longest maps, is that there's not a lot of detail on the map if they're trying to go for a map to where you can like place down a bunch of towers as well as a bunch of like farms and stuff. So guys, I think I have a rough idea of what I want to go for, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing when I'm creating this map is I want to get the layout for the pathway set up. So the pathway that I'm going to use for this map is going to be the invisible pathway. Now, the reason why I want to use the invisible pathway is pretty obvious, because I mean I don't have to worry about the pathway becoming too wide. At least it won't be visible. So now the next thing I'm a little bit worried about is like where I want to like make it to where you can place down banana farms. So I was thinking if I made the pathway to where it's like right here like this, and just leave like barely enough room on the outside to where you can position banana farms along the entire outside of the map, I thought that would be really cool, because that would leave the entire inside in order to like place down farms and stuff. So I think this would be a pretty solid map layout if I just use this little square here as the border for the pathway. Now, for like the ins and outs, I think I want to make it so the balloons enter in the top here. Now, I will have to go through and I'll have to check to see if like there's going to be enough room to place down farms from this end to this end, but I think there should be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm probably going to like make a little bit of a speedy bit where I'm going through and I'm placing down the square pathway throughout this entire map. But all right, dudes, this is going to be the second little speedy bit that I've done in these map creations, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. All right, dude, so we have officially hit the maximum prop limit here. All right, so this is going to be fun to like try and like pick out the final prop here. Now, one thing I want to do for like the entrance and the exit is I want the entrance to be up top here, and I want the exit to be in the bottom. So I'm going to need to pull out all these nodes again because I need to find the node that is connected to the final path. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and move these nodes back. So it looks like the balloons are going to do quite a few paths around this track, which is exactly what we're going for. So let's go ahead, we'll delete this node, and then this is going to be the final node here. And like I was saying, I'm going to make it so this pathway exits in the very bottom of the map. The goal of this map wasn't to make the longest map, but it was to make the map that you can go the latest in Bloons TD6 with. So we left plenty of room along the outside. So let's go ahead and play this map and see what it's going to look like when we're actually in a game. All right, so far it's looking pretty good. Let me go ahead. Let's see what the balloons are going to look like. All right, so we'll go ahead, we'll have the balloons enter up here. They look like they're kind of like entering in on like a slant, but once we add a little bit of detail, that should go away. And then every time they do a circle around the map, they're going to end up coming through the middle here. So this is where I want people to like place the Vengeful Sun God, because then the Vengeful Sun God will have a long time to actually hit these balloons. And then on top of that, I was rethinking what I want to do with like the water feature of this map. And I think I want to make like the right side over here, I want to make like a little lake. That way you have enough room to like place down a bunch of merchantmen, and on top of that, you'll also have like enough room to place down all the towers that you're going to need for the Knave Arc of the Seas as well. But anyways, so far, this is looking like a pretty solid map. It is going to be super, super long, which is exactly what we were going for. So it looks like it's just going to do like 3 paths on each side, and then for a total of 6 times, it's going to go through the middle of the map here. And then I'm going to need to like kind of like find where the middle of the map is here. Let me just go ahead and wait a second until the balloons go through the middle here again. So the middle of the map is going to be right here. So I want to make sure that I can fit a super monkey in that spot. So let's go ahead. We'll wait until we have enough money for a super monkey. So while we're waiting to save up enough money for the super monkey, let me go through the outside here. Okay, so we already ran into our first problem. So we can't fit any banana farms along the outside of the path. So I think we're going to have to make the pathway a little bit more towards the center, which is not a big deal because we already have the entire pathway set up. It's just I wanted to make sure that the pathway was wide enough to put banana farms along the outside of the map. So that's something that we're gonna have to fix, because I really want the banana farms to go along the outside of the map, because then it'll look a little bit cleaner as well. All right, so we should have enough money for our super monkey now. And yeah, dude, we have just enough room to place down this super monkey. This is gonna be so cool. Like, when we get to the super late game and we have the Vengeful Sun God like buffed with another Sun Temple, the super monkey should be able to hit the entire track of the entire time. So this is going to be a pretty solid setup we have here. But like I was saying, we do have to move the pathway a little bit, because this pathway, it's good, but the only issue, like I was saying, is that we can't place banana farms along the outside. So we'll go ahead and reposition all these nodes a little bit further up. All right, so far so good. Let me take a look really quick to make sure like this pathway is wide enough. And then after I make sure that the pathway is wide enough, and then we'll go through and we'll finish placing down all of the pylons and whatnot. All right, there we go. And we have enough room. Okay, so the left side needs a little bit of work because we still can't place the farms on the left side. We can place the farms on the bottom side. Like, there's barely enough room. So we need to make sure that we don't change that. And then the right side also needs a little bit of work too. So the left and the right side need to be a little bit more towards the center. So there we go. We have like just enough space to like place down farms here, with a little bit of extra space for a margin of error. So now that we have the left and the right side set up, let's go through and we'll fix all of the pylons. We'll finish positioning all the pylons where we want them, and then it'll be time to get into a little bit of detail, because there's a lot of detail that we have to do with this map. So what I'm going to use for my own custom path, I've used this in the past because it ends up looking really, really cool. But there's a specific rock that actually looks really good when you're like trying to make your own custom path. And I also have a couple of different ideas, like use lily pads as the path when we make the water feature over here. So actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and do that really, really quick. Let me go through and we'll add the water feature first. So for the water feature, I want this feature to like kind of be like a I want to say like a lake on the side of a garden. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll make this lake go way up here. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to put like banana farms up here. But again, I want to make sure that I had enough room to like place down all of the water towers, as well as I wanted to make sure that we could like position a water version of a vengeful sun god, just in case we wanted to do something like that. Now, obviously, it would probably be a little bit better to like place a little bit of a water feature here in the middle of the map. That way, when you do get the vengeful sun god in the middle of the map, you can go ahead and water buff it. But I want you guys to have your options open. Like, what if you don't want to use like the vengeful sun god in the middle of the map? What if you want to use something else? So I don't want to only make it a water feature in the middle of the map. I want to keep it open to a couple of different ideas. All right, and there we go. I think that should make for a pretty solid lake on this map, and that should give you more than enough room to place down any water towers that you would like to place down. On top of that, if you want to like place down a bunch of different land towers, you can always use the ice monkey to like position land towers on top of water. So now the question is, I'm gonna have to add a little bit of sand as well. So with the sand, we'll go ahead and drop the layer. We'll drop the layer below this. And then I'll also make like a little beach area, because I mean, when you have a lake, you do want to go through and add a little bit of a beach area as well. And this should look pretty good once we get like the beach all set up. All right, so I think that looks like a pretty solid beach. I didn't want to like go too crazy with it, but I think that looks pretty good. All right, so now, like I was saying, this is going to be where things are going to get a little bit difficult, because I want to use lily pads as the pathway once it starts to get in the water. But I also want to make sure like, that these lily pads will like blend into the background well, right? Now, when we're placing down lily pads in the water, we need to be really, really careful that we don't place down too many. Because once we start placing down a lot of lily pads, it's going to end up blocking the placement of towers. So when we get to the point where we have to place down more lily pads to blend in the current lily pads into the map, we need to remember that we don't want to end up placing too many. Otherwise, it's going to end up blocking the towers that we want the player to be able to place. All right, and there we go. So I played around with like the idea of using a little bit more color along the pathway, and that's definitely something that we're going to add once we start adding more detail to the map. So now the real question is, what am I going to use for the pathway? So like I was saying, I do have a rock that I really like to use for these custom pathways. And it's this platform rock right here. Like, this platform rock usually looks pretty solid when you're creating like your own custom pathways. So if we like place one here, and then let me go ahead and move this up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get like the basic layout of this map like set up. And then another thing that we're going to have to keep in mind is that we're going to have to like add more detail. And when we start adding more of that detail, we want to make sure that we don't end up like blocking any farms up here in like at the top of the map. But all right, dudes, I'm going to go ahead and get to it. I'm going to start like building this pathway. Again, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a speedy bit. That way you guys can go ahead and see each step I take in order to make this pathway really pop.
Gotta make it fast, right next to this black fire. It's just you and I now. Just make me move right. Don't stop for nothing till you're in my bloodstream. Chemicals, get 'em moving. I can feel your blood. Keep it flowing, make it one more time, and then I do it again. Let you in under my skin. Hey, let you in under my skin. Oh,
right, guys, like I think that looks pretty good. Like I was thinking about adding the flowers in between all the rocks, but I felt like that would look a little bit too weird. So now I'm trying to think of something else that we can do to add a little bit more detail behind these rocks. And I think this stamp right here would work really, really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to add these stamps behind, because it'll kind of look like there's rocks underneath the rocks that have been like buried up by like grass and dirt. And I think that would look pretty cool. All right, and that really added a lot of detail behind our pathway, because our pathway was looking a little bit bland, because there wasn't anything behind our pathway that really like made our rocks blend into the map at all. But by adding those stamps, that really made the pathway blend in a little bit better, which is exactly what we were going for. So now the hard part begins, where we have to like try our best to like try and make these lily pads blend into the map a little bit better. And I think one of the things that we can do is we can add like a little bushel of leaves here. We can add another little bushel over here. We can add another one down here, and this will just like try to make the lily pads blend into the map a little bit better. And then another thing that I can do to like kind of make these lily pads blend in a little bit better is I can go through and I can add these purple flowers around the lily pads, and that'll add a little bit of extra color to our lily pads, and that should help to add a little bit of extra detail. Like, we're not going to go too crazy with the purple flowers, because if we go too crazy, then it'll just like kind of seem out of place, and that's definitely something that we don't want. Now, another thing that I want to do to add a little bit more detail to our map is I want to come through and I want to add this grass effect all along the beach here, because that'll give us so much detail where we're currently lacking along the beach. So this grass is going to add a little bit of extra detail that we're missing along the beach here. So this is one of the big problems that I have with like stamps, is that trying to get like the perfect placement of like these stamps just takes so long. Like, I have a giant gaggle of leaves here that's just chilling because I can't get the directions that I need for these stamps. All right, I think this one should do quite nicely. All right, so it's just a little off, but I think that should look fine. All right, so currently I'm trying to get the directions for this upper part here, but all of these like stamps that we're placing down just want to face the wrong direction. And there we go. I think that looks like a pretty solid like break from the grass into the sand into the water, which is exactly what I was going for. So now we can go ahead and get rid of all of those extra like grass piles, because we no longer need them. Now, another thing that we can do to add a little bit of extra detail is we can add like a sandbar. Like, we don't want to go too crazy with the sandbars, but that's definitely going to be a little bit of extra detail that we're missing on our map. Now, what else can we do to add a little bit of extra detail out here in the water? All right, so I think the only thing that we're going to do or be able to do to add a little bit of extra detail is go through and add these sunspots. And then the sunspots will kind of like act as a, I want to say like a transition from the sand into the water, into the lily pads, into the open sea, which is something that I really like using these sunspots for, because they always end up looking really, really cool. And they add so much detail. Like, the main reason why I like using them is that they kind of look like rocks that are just below the water line, which is why I think they look so cool. There we go. So I think that's a pretty solid transition from the grass into these grass stamps, into the sand, into the really shallow water, and then over into the deeper water. So one thing that we can do to make it seem like this is a little bit of a deeper water, actually, you know what? I don't think I want to do that, because I feel like that would look a little bit too weird. Now, unfortunately, there's not really something that we could use as waves. Like, I did have the idea a long time ago to like use these bones as waves, but the only problem with these bones like acting as waves is that trying to like get them to line up perfectly is just like an absolute pain, right? Like it took me forever just to get one line, and in order to like kind of like make it seem like these are breaking waves, we would have to spend quite a bit of time to like try and make those turn into a breaking wave. But for the most part, I think that's a pretty solid outer edge. Now, like I was saying, dude, I want to add more lily pads, but the moment I start adding more lily pads, that's the moment like we're gonna lose the fact that these lily pads are supposed to be a pathway, right? You know what, guys? I think it's about time we start making use of this grass prop. Like, I think if we use this grass prop, it's gonna look good and it's gonna give us that extra details that we're looking for, but it's gonna take a lot of grass to like kind of remove all of this open green area. Then I also want to find a good color palette that's gonna look good, right? So we want a couple of like darker grass spots, and we also want a couple of lighter grass spots as well. But all right, dudes, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna try to make this grass look good. All right, so here we go. Let's just go ahead and do another little bit of a speedy bake because this is gonna take a while. Oh no, we just hit the max props limits. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Like, we were just adding way too many props for like us not to be nearing that prop limit. So the question is, how many of these grass am I gonna have to delete in order to still have a couple of props placed left or placed down? Because I have a couple of ideas to add a little bit more detail to our map. That way our map doesn't seem like super bland. I think what I want to do is I want to add like a custom made tree up here in the top left hand corner of the screen. Now I wanted to add this dark grass to add a little bit of contrast, but I don't think we're going to be able to get away with it. And the question is, how far did we go over the prop limit, guys? I think I'm going to delete all of the dark grass and then I'm going to save and exit and then come back in, because I don't think we should have gone too far over the prop limit. I know we used a lot of props for like the pathway, but the pathway is relatively simple, so we shouldn't have gone like too far over the prop limit. All right, so there we go. So we officially have our prop limit back, but I am still a little bit worried about when I add the tree up here in the top left hand corner, because I want to add something a little bit extra to like kind of take away from, or like just to add a little something eye-catching to this map, because I like the grass. Like, the grass is meant to like just kind of like break up of the super barren grassy plain. All right, so the only thing I'm doing is I'm adding like a little special tree up here because I felt like, again, the map was just a little bit too barren. So if we add this tree and then we add a couple of like shrubs underneath it, that should kind of like take away from like how the map feels a little bit barren right now. And in order to like kind of blend this into the background a little bit more, again, we'll add a couple of these shrubs around the street just to add a little bit of extra detail. And I chose the darker shrubs because what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of shade too. Now, in case you guys are wondering how I made this tree, the tree was actually really simple to make. The only thing I did is I used this log here and then I tilted it on its side. And then I just made it like super big. And then I just capped it off with this leaf, or with these leaves. And I think that adds a little bit of extra detail to our map, because right now, I'm sure you guys know, okay, so can I not click the log anymore? So the log should be right in the center, right? There we go. All right, so I'm debating on adding like another tree down here because I really like the way that that tree looks. But the thing is that we really wouldn't have to worry too much about like adding like another like tree trunk down here, because the leaves would end up covering it up. So let me go ahead and do that, because like I was saying, the map feels a little bit barren, especially since we don't have any shade on this map either. And please forgive me if this map doesn't look like super good. Again, I didn't want to add too many props, because if I added like a bunch of props, then it would interfere with like placing down towers, and I wanted this map to be a map that you could go to like hyper late game with. And there's a prop limit again. No! Let me go ahead and remove a little bit of this grass up here. And we have a couple more props that we could place down. I really wanted to add flowers, guys, but it looks like we're not going to be able to add flowers because, yup, there's the prop limit again, guys. So unfortunately, there's nothing else that we could really do to this map. I'm just happy that I was able to get down a couple of trees because this just adds so much detail just by adding a couple of trees, especially on a map where we really don't have a lot of detail. So now let's go ahead and check out our map in an actual game and see how this map is actually going to play. Now, ideally, I could have added way more detail, but again, guys, like making these custom-made pathways just takes up so many props, and because we have so many overlapping paths, I feel like this was the only thing that we could do to like really make our map to where you could place down a bunch of towers and you wouldn't have to worry about like the pathway looking a little bit weird. And on top of that, I also wanted to make it so this map had as much detail as I could give it. Like, of course, we could have gone through, we could have like made the pathway like super like normal by going through and just using like a normal path, and that would have saved us a lot of props. But I think this was a little bit of a better idea, even though it does still look a little bit barren. So I do apologize that it looks a little bit barren, but again, guys, like I just really wanted this map to be super long and a map that you could go to like super late game with. That being said, guys, I would really like to see what your guys' thoughts are of this map and what round you can actually make it to on this map. Now, again, guys, I did make this map extremely long because like I was saying, this should be a map that you should have no issue like making it past round 400 on. So while we're beating this map, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support on the series. You guys are absolutely crushing it. That being said, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys don't forget to hit that like button. Also, if you guys are new around here, don't forget to subscribe as well. Also, if you guys have any really cool ideas that you guys would like to see me create with the BTD6 map editor, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And if it sounds like a super fun idea, I'm definitely going to make it happen. And guys, I want to issue a challenge to you guys. I want to see what round you guys can make it to on this map in vanilla BTD6. So leave a comment below what round you guys can make it to on this map. Okay, so it looks like we're gonna have a little bit of clippage with this tree up here in the top left, but there's not really too much that I can do about the clippage, unfortunately. So I'm sorry, guys, but you guys will have to do with a little bit of nonsense with this tree up here. But I feel like that tree just adds so much to this map that I want to keep it. And guys, if you guys want to see me upload a video where I try to go to past round 400 on this map, again, please feel free to let me know in the comments below, because I think this would be a really fun map to go to super late game on, especially since you have so much room to like place down towers. You have room to place down water towers, and you also have a lot of room to like place down banana farms as well. And this map has so many different possibilities. Like, you could actually probably get away with doing a one towers chimps on this map, to be honest. Okay, so why are my farms being blocked over here? I think I may have to like jump back into the editor to like try and turn off blocking on these leaves to see if that's going to make any difference, because that might make a little bit of a difference, hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into the map editor, hopefully fix that, and if I do, I'll bring you guys back on round 40 when I actually beat my map. All right, so good news, dudes. I did turn off the blocking for the tree, and now we can place the banana farm like right up next to the tree, which is perfect. So I didn't realize that the blocking also worked for like towers and stuff. So that's really good information. So now you can go ahead and like place farms all along the outer pathway here. Now I did leave like the log to where it's still gonna block your towers, but I made it so like you could still place towers underneath of this these leaves over here. All right, dudes, so here we are on round 39. Now, like I was saying, this definitely is not the longest map in Bloons TD6, because the longest map in Bloons TD6 does like an oval pattern straight through the map. But this is definitely the longest map, or the best longest map for late game. So I think that's what we're actually going to be naming our map. All right, so I think I settled on this. So I think I'm going to call this map the longest map for late game, because that's what this map is meant for. It's meant for going to super late game. It gives you plenty of room to farm. It gives you plenty of room to like place down a bunch of monkey butt buccaneers for like Neighbor of the Seas and other water towers. It gives you a perfect spot for your Vengeful Sun God, as well as it gives you a pretty solid, pretty solid spots for all of your paragons as well. But all right, dudes, if you guys would like to play this map for yourself, and also if you guys do end up playing this map to go super late at game, make sure you guys let me know in the comments below what round you actually made it to. But anyways, dudes, so that's gonna do it for the video. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button once more, and I'll see you dudes in the next one.